What is going on, LBHT crew? We got our man Hendo in the house. What's going on, Hendo?
Not much. How you doing?
I appreciate you coming through, representing the Rogue Pod. Make sure you guys go over there and hit the subscribe button. Also, listen wherever podcasts are played. You can find him as well as our podcast, Lunch Break Hot Take, where we do the LBHT show every Wednesday night. For the podcast listeners, Thursday afternoon. So make sure you follow us, leave a 5-star review, all that good stuff. All right, listen. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens having a pretty good season. As we speak right now, they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. We don't know what the outcome of this game is going to be. We might be raging on them afterwards, or we might be back in the Super Bowl. We'll see. But all in all, they've been having a pretty good season. Lamar Jackson, even though he doesn't have the numbers as some of these other quarterbacks, he's been playing really well. Really well. And we kind of mentioned it on our show last night that there were some teams that were out on him this offseason. He was a free agent. The team put the franchise tag on him. They gave him opportunity to seek a trade partner, right? And find some teams that might be interested in his services. And a lot of teams decided instantly that they were out. Right now, there's questions of collusion, which we strongly believe that it was. And, we want to discuss, though. We want to discuss the teams that publicly said that they were out. How are they faring right now?
Yeah, so there were several teams who came out basically immediately. As soon as the news broke that the Ravens were tagging Lamar with the non-exclusive tag and he would be able to negotiate with other teams, several teams came out immediately and said they were not interested. They include the Las Vegas Raiders, the Washington Commanders, the Atlanta Falcons, the Miami Dolphins, and, of course, the Carolina Panthers. And they're having varying degrees of success so far this season. The Dolphins obviously are the best of that group right now, 6-3 atop the AFC East. The unfortunate thing for them is those 3 losses are the only 3 times they've played a team over 500 this year. So they've kind of been beating up on weaker competition and not necessarily showing up against the good teams. And actually, no. Now, thanks to their mishaps, Buffalo is no longer over 500. So that doesn't even hold true anymore. Now they've also lost one to a bad team.
I mean, they're 5-5, so.
Yeah. So the Raiders also at 5-5. They've gone away from their starting quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo and are going now with the rookie Aiden O'Connell.
Also, they've gone away from their head coach and GM.
Yes, they fired their head coach and GM and I believe offensive coordinator as well. The Washington Commanders are sitting currently in 3rd place in the NFC East at 4-6. Now, I think that they may have found their quarterback in Sam Howell, but we should mention also that head coach Ron Rivera currently has the best odds to be the next coach to be fired. The Atlanta Falcons are sitting in 3rd at 4-6. Now, I haven't heard any rumors about their head coach, but they have, in fact, benched their starting quarterback, Desmond Ritter.
And there's a strong feeling out there that he's going to be fired.
He should be fired. Yeah. But I don't know how Arthur Blank feels about that, but he should be fired. The Carolina Panthers, of course, sitting at 1-8, the worst team in the league up to this point. They have not benched their quarterback because they gave away everything to get him. But it does look like head coach Frank Reich, the leader of that coaching dream team, if you will, is on the hot seat. He has taken back control of play calling from offensive coordinator Thomas Brown mere weeks after giving him play calling duties in a tearful press conference where he proclaimed how proud he was, like he was his father. Now he's taking that back because Dad's about to get fired. Kind of need to make sure that we do this right. Not a time to learn on the job. So yeah, they are obviously not going very well. And I guess we can go ahead and start with Carolina. The thing about Carolina is you came out and you said you're not interested. You have an owner who was, as soon as he took over the team, that he wouldn't accept mediocrity, right? And that they were going to build things the right way so they can have long-lasting success. It's been well known that he wanted to make a splash at quarterback, and I just don't. Look, I like Bryce Young a lot. I think he's a great prospect, and I think he's going to be a very good starting quarterback once they build around him. But there's no bigger splash, one, than getting Lamar Jackson.
Right.
There's no better way, I think, to ensure that you will not be mediocre than having Lamar Jackson as your starting quarterback. He's one of the winningest quarterbacks in the league since 2018. And you gave up more assets to draft Bryce Young than you would have had to give up to get Lamar Jackson. They traded their number 9 pick. They traded the 2024 first round pick, which looks like it could very well be number 1. And they traded the 2025 second round pick, and they traded their number 1 receiver. I believe he's 26 years old now, DJ Moore. A legit number 1 receiver, which is something that they're sorely lacking at this point. So you have a team here who was already lacking in talent, to be kind, and they're giving up extremely valuable assets to move up and take their quarterback. It's not working, obviously. Coach is possibly on his way out. The GM has done a terrible job since he's been employed by the team. I don't know why we have any faith in him kind of turning this around. And you had essentially, if you remember those commercials, you had essentially an sitting there this offseason where you say, hey, we'll give you this number 9 pick, which we're going to use on a quarterback anyway, and next year's first round pick, which you ended up trading anyway, to get, in my opinion, the second best quarterback in the league, and one of the most talented quarterbacks the league's ever seen, one of the most dynamic quarterbacks the league's ever seen. It has shown you for years that he can play at a high level and win games with less talent around him.
Yeah, and also, you look, the offensive line obviously has been a disappointment, but at the very least, you get to keep DJ Moore, and with Lamar there, who's had some experience with a bad offensive line, you have much more success now with Lamar and DJ Moore there than you do with your current personnel.
Yeah, I mean, I think you took my points on this, Jose. You have issues with your offensive line. And what other quarterback in the NFL makes their offensive line look a lot better than they are, other than Lamar? Then to your point, B, you already gave up the 2 first-round picks. Now, granted, you would have had to give up a bigger salary to keep Lamar around, but he is a main attraction. You as an owner want to make a splash. This is how you make a splash. You literally have players around the league waiting in line after games to get Lamar's autograph. So you don't think that that's one of the best free agent pitches that you can have? Come play with Lamar. And now you make your team better just because you have that superstar. You're going to be on TV. You're going to be in prime time. So he's going to generate a lot more revenue. Sorry, boy, wonder Bryce Young, but he's going to generate a lot more revenue than Bryce Young would. So for me, this one, I just didn't understand it, but I'm glad they did what they did.
Yeah, the boys section sold out of them Bryce Young jerseys. I don't know what you're talking about. and listen, nothing against Jonathan Mingo. He's very early on in his career, obviously. But if you keep DJ Moore, you don't need to spend that second round pick on a wide receiver necessarily. You can invest that into the O-line or any other place on the team, right? Other than trying to replace the proven wide receiver who you just traded away. So yeah, it's not going great for Carolina. But I don't think that we need to hammer the Panthers anymore in this video. Let's hammer the Panthers anymore in this video. Let's move on to some of these other teams. Let's go to the top of the hill.
Okay.
Or do you want to start at the bottom and work the way up?
Okay. Look, I just want to eliminate Miami right now. The only reason Miami, was in question, like people were wondering if he was going to go there because they are perceived to be a Super Bowl ready team, right? And there's questions about Tua. Tua had 4 or 5 concussions. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but yeah, a lot of concussions last year. And there's questions about whether or not he was still going to be able to play, right? So it was natural. It was natural to wonder: are they looking to, move on from him and get another stable quarterback? And as well as Tua is playing right now, Lamar's a better quarterback. He's an upgrade. You put Lamar with Tyreek Hill, right? And essentially in front of both of their home crowd, right? Because they're both from Florida. Yeah. I mean, so of course people wondered that, but they shut that down. And I can't say that they regret it because Tua's playing amazing. They're playing well, but there is that one glaring hole that B pointed out. They haven't beat a winning team, So we'll see when it gets. That's one of those things when we get to the playoffs, that will kind of expose itself more whether or not they feel comfortable with Tua long term, or are they gonna look back and say, man, we could have done it all with Lamar. But I can't necessarily call it a bad decision that they decided to stick with Tua. It's just a decision they made.
I can call it a bad decision because I don't want to pay Tua. I think that Tua's success is the product of having Tyreek Hill, having Jalen Waddle, and having that coach. Not to say that Tua can't play. No. I think he can, but I don't want to give Tua $50+ million when I could just give that to Lamar Jackson instead.
Right.
And you're going to get a lot more out of Lamar Jackson than you will out of Tua. So, I mean, I'll call it a mistake. It's not a catastrophic mistake like the one we were just talking about, but a mistake nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's minor. But like you said, I would rather pay Lamar $52 million and deal with his possible injury concerns, but things may be a little bit different with Miami's offensive line. Instead of paying Tua $52 million and not knowing if he slides the wrong way, is that going to end his career? And I'm going to owe him a bunch of guaranteed money. So I can see both sides of it, but they did just pick up Tua's 5th-year option for $25 million. So I guess I can see it, but I could just imagine Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and I-Chain with Lamar Jackson back there and Mostert.
Yeah.
But once again, thank you.
All right. So 2 teams down. Who we have next?
We've got the Falcons, the Raiders, and the Commanders left to talk about. Okay. I don't know what order y'all want to take those in. I guess we can go with Washington since they're 4-6. I mean, Sam Howell, he's there. He's starting to turn it around. He's starting to turn things around, and I think we can attribute that at least in part to Eric Bieniemy's coaching. Sam Howell was always a talented guy. When he was at North Carolina, there was talk about him being a first-round pick, possibly the first quarterback taken when he came out. Mac Brown showed up. Here we are. But he's playing pretty well. The first half of the season was a little rough, but he's gotten things, I think, turned around a bit. The reality is you've got Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson. The offense should be better than it is. And I think, we can attribute that mostly, at least up to this point in the season, mostly to Sam Howell, right? Now, I mean, I'm a Sam Howell fan. I hope that he kind of continues to improve and they keep it, keep going. But where would this team be if they had Lamar Jackson instead of Sam Howell?
Exactly. I'm not as high on Sam Howell. I mean, look, obviously he's playing better, and maybe he can be that franchise quarterback for them, right? But what's his ceiling? Is his ceiling better than Lamar Jackson? Probably not, right? And he has to develop into that as opposed to getting somebody that's already surpassed him. It's just you're wasting time. And again, you have another coach that seemingly is on the hot seat, and you're doing all that for what? To prove like, hey, we don't need Lamar Jackson here. We're fine without him. Meanwhile, I'm about to lose my job. It's like don't play around with that. Like especially if you're going to go and hire somebody like Eric Bieniemy, that's when you want to bring in Lamar Jackson and again another team with weapons, and you're squandering it on a quarterback that you're hoping becomes solid enough to be a competitive team.
I'm not too high on Washington. Everybody knows, DC really can't stand him. This is the one team that I was glad passed on Lamar. And like you said, you would think that in a division with Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, you would want a quarterback that can compete. Now,
Danny Dimes.
But, Sam Howell's been playing well, but you need that superstar to get you over the hump. But I do understand that because they had the ownership issues that they had with Dan Snyder, they weren't really trying to commit to anything because they really didn't know who was going to take over the team. So I can understand that, and I'm just happy Lamar didn't go to DC.
Me too. That'd be a major problem.
Yeah.
Some haters.
Maybe.
Yeah, so obviously next up we have the Las Vegas Raiders, who also publicly took a pass on signing Lamar Jackson because they have Jimmy Garoppolo. He of the New England Patriots.
What was that?
What you drinking at?
This right here?
Yeah.
So last week, B was mentioning something that he was taking called Magic Mind. So I told him I try it out. It's pretty good. Listen. I'm skeptical. Anytime I see something green, I'm like, that looks too healthy for me. But pretty good taste. And in the aftertaste, especially because usually it's like, okay, it tastes okay, but what about that aftertaste? The aftertaste, it's pretty good.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I just got mine earlier this week, and I have to tell you, since I've taken it, my focus has just been on 1,000. I've created a lot of videos and come up with a lot of ideas, and I think that Magic Mind just helped clear that fogginess in my head and help me to push through.
Yeah, no, Hendo's been in my DMs all week long talking about I can't stop creating stuff. Like I can't stop making videos. I can't stop doing these thumbnails, all this stuff. He's like, I need to rein it in. Yeah. Right. Because he started drinking the Magic Mind, and he's just like the ideas are flowing.
I've definitely noticed that it's helped me focus. Yeah, and Hendo, he's doing it more than I am now, but the editing and putting these videos together, I definitely need that, especially when I'm working late, right? And I'm already worn out from a long day, and I need something to kind of help me focus on getting these videos out on time. It's helped. I can honestly say it's helped me.
Yeah, I need to order some more because I'm all out right now, and I'm definitely noticing a difference at work. when I was drinking it, I was able to kind of just stay focused and not get fatigued, and just get my work done, and it was all good. And now I'll be at work for like hour and a half, and I'm just looking at the clock. I'm like, man, when is this over with?
Yeah.
When am I gonna be done? But yeah, no, I definitely gotta get back on there and order some more. But like we were talking about with the Raiders, Jimmy Garoppolo, he was the golden boy in New England. Then he went to San Francisco and he was the golden boy until they needed him to make a throw in the Super Bowl. And then they drafted a quarterback. And then they were like, hey, he's not good. Jimmy Garoppolo. And then Jimmy, lost his job to the next Jimmy Garoppolo. He ended up in Vegas. And for some reason, I suspect it's because Josh McDaniels is a terrible coach. They decided to go with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback. But they have since, as we mentioned early on, fired Josh McDaniels and the GM and the offensive coordinator and decided to go with rookie Aiden O'Connell. They are 5-5. Okay, they got a little boost from kicking Josh McDaniels out, as everyone does. They got Antonio Pierce as the interim coach now, but it's not working. Right? They need a major upgrade at that position.
Yeah, look, the reality is the Raiders just couldn't afford Lamar. Right? The owner couldn't afford Lamar. That was the reality, right? But
we don't mean under the cap. We mean he doesn't have any money.
Right. Yes. Look, even still, from a fan's perspective, when you go out there and say, "Oh, we don't need this guy. We're not interested in this guy. We got Jimmy G. We have a plan here," and you're boastful like that, then you expect to see that. And not only did Jimmy G not work out, unsurprisingly, your coach, GM, and you said the offensive coordinator as well all got fired. Around midnight or so, right? The owner decided, he woke up in a cold chill, right, a cold sweat, and said, "Nah, I need him gone now. I can't wait until tomorrow morning." I need him.
You know what it reminded me? It reminded me of when Ron Rivera woke up at 3 a.m. and said he had an epiphany that he had to fire Mike Shula.
Yeah,
because people have been telling him for several years to fire Mike Shula and get a real offensive coordinator in there, but it just came to him, I don't know, in a dream, or nightmare or something. And he woke up in the middle of the night and was like, I got to move on and get my old buddy Norv.
Yeah. So, I mean, it obviously hasn't worked out well. And that's another team you put Lamar on there with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. Oh, my God.
Yeah, because when you put Devontae Adams with Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell, he's demanding a trade at the trade deadline.
Well, yeah.
I don't know what to say.
He's upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You put him out there with Lamar Jackson, and he's in that same talk with Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson right now.
Yeah, and I think that he would have a different relationship with the organization because you like, hey, I came here with Derek Carr and you upgraded to Lamar Jackson. All right, I'm here for the long run. But as you stated, Mark Davis is broke. Like he doesn't have the money in escrow to give out for the guaranteed portion of the deal that he has to put in escrow. So, yeah, it would have been a good fit for them just because they're poor. And I hate to say that the billion-dollar franchise is poor, but just imagine Lamar Jackson in Las Vegas. Just the publicity and advertisement that could be drummed up from that. But he just couldn't afford it. So I'm not really upset with the Raiders.
Team up, the Atlanta Falcons with owner Arthur Blank. I mean, they my man could not wait. He ran up to the first microphone he saw and said, "No Lamar," which was odd because this is a team that had kind of a little bit of a precursor to Lamar in Michael Vick.
Absolutely.
Right? Who played a similar style. And the fans loved him. He really connected with the community. He made the Falcons relevant in a way they hadn't been in a while. Arthur Blank loved Mike Vick himself, right? And your quarterback's Desmond Ridder. It was a no-brainer because there's a theme with all of these teams, right? All these teams that we're talking about, except for Carolina, have very good weapons, high-level weapons that they could have paired with Lamar Jackson. In Atlanta, you're looking at Drake London, you're looking at Kyle Pitts, you're looking at at the time it was Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier. Obviously they drafted Bijan, but they wouldn't have had that pick. Had they traded for Lamar Jackson. But even just Pitts, London, and those running backs, because they were both 1,000-yard running backs, is more than enough reason to go out and get Lamar Jackson, right? So obviously they didn't. They said no. We're going to roll with Desmond Ridder, second-year quarterback out of Connecticut. Oh no, I'm sorry, Cincinnati. And they are 4-6, right? They're 4-6, and Desmond Ridder is no longer their quarterback. They have gone to Taylor Heineke, who you may remember from failing in Washington.
Yep.
And you may also remember from failing in Carolina. And I believe also failing in Minnesota. No, not Minnesota. He was in Houston for one game. But he didn't really play in Houston, so that's okay. You don't have anything at the quarterback position. You know that. It's not a question. Desmond Ridder, he only played 4 games as a rookie, but he looked awful. He did not look good at all. Through the offseason, he looked terrible. It was a running joke that they would never even show who was throwing the ball at training camp for the Falcons because, the passes were so bad they didn't want to tank belief in the team by showing that it was Desmond Ridder every time. The Falcons, more than any of these other teams, more than anybody else, show that this was a league-wide pact. Like it was collusion by the owners against, not just against Lamar Jackson, but against essentially all players, right? Like we're not going to let you hit free agency and try to demand these guaranteed contracts. We're not going to let these salaries continue to spiral out of control. But Atlanta, they went to the forefront and said, we're putting the shield ahead of the Atlanta Falcons. We're putting, the owners kind of saving a little bit of money ahead of the Falcons being competitive and winning any games. And if I were a Falcons fan, I would not be a Falcons fan anymore.
I mean, you pretty much right. Well, a lot of Falcons fans immediately upon hearing that they are not going to try to get Lamar Jackson release a diss track. Okay. Yeah. They weren't going for that at all. They weren't trying to hear any of that. Okay, some of these other fan bases kind of lied to themselves and said, "Yeah, we don't need Lamar. He gets hurt a lot. Oh, he's not worth that. Not Falcons fans. They call BS from the jump. And and you can't sell a fan base on Desmond Ridder. I'm sorry, or Taylor Heineke. So I mean, and look, we know what it is. It is collusion. Okay, they're denying. But that's what it is. When you have teams that desperately need a quarterback like this that will change the trajectory of their franchise, put butts in the seats in the stadium, sell jerseys, everything that you're looking for, and you just say, no, I'm not interested. We'll take the far lesser quarterback. You're doing it to the detriment of your team. And I feel like because of what's going on in the future, they're going to be a lot more reluctant to try to play this game when a quarterback like that is available.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that this was the one franchise for me to just totally let me know that the NFL was colluding against Lamar Jackson, because Arthur Blank, like you stated, was in love with Michael Vick. Like, he loved Michael Vick like a son. And I think he cried when he got arrested and he had to leave the team. So I know, looking at Lamar Jackson, you have, just as an electric runner, a better passer, and I hate to say it, I don't know them, but a better human being. So especially in the city of Atlanta, where Lamar Jackson would heavily be embraced, not only just for his talent on the field, but off the field. But I just know, me being an owner and seeing and going through Marcus Mariota and benching him and bringing up Desmond Ridder and seeing what they had to offer me, I already know I need a quarterback. And you can't say, well, we're looking for the future. No, you went the road with Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder was what, a third round draft pick?
Second, I believe second.
Second or third round draft pick that showed you he got a chance to start last season, and he showed the team, I'm not that good. So you're telling me, oh no, we're not going to give Lamar this money because he doesn't deserve it. But then after Lamar signs, you go out and sign these other two quarterbacks for the money that you said Lamar didn't deserve, that have less statistical success than him as far as winning goes. So yeah, I knew it was collusion from the first sign, because like I said, they came out a little bit too fast. Now I understand if they sat back and a reporter came up and said, hey, how do you feel about the Lamar Jackson situation? No, nobody asked him. He was just sitting in this chair and was like, hey, somebody bring me a phone. We're not interested.
Right. Well, all right. Those are the teams that put themselves out there and embarrass themselves, and I don't think any one of them is happy. Well, sans the Dolphins for now. I don't think the rest of them are happy with their decision.
Well, yeah, and the team that ended up actually signing Lamar Jackson, obviously the Baltimore Ravens, are now 8-3, and Lamar is having one of his best seasons of his career. He's completing 70% of his passes. Again, they are in the driver's seat in the AFC North. They finally put a couple of playmakers around him. They got Odell, who's finally kind of rounding into form. Rashad Bateman is getting himself going. Zay Flowers and Keaton Mitchell have turned out to be pretty electric players. The only question right now in Baltimore is, can that O-line hold up for the playoff run? But you when you're looking at these other teams, you passed on. I mean, we people kind of throw this term around, but you passed on a generational talent in Lamar Jackson, and not a lottery ticket. Like, we kind of looked at Anthony Richardson, and he's the most athletic quarterback ever. By the combine testing, you're like, hey, he's got the arm. You can see the ability, even the mental part of it. He just needs more reps, but we don't know, right? You don't know how that's going to turn out. You look at the same thing with Bryce Young here. He's got everything upstairs, right? He's a pretty athletic guy. He makes a lot of plays in the clutch, but we don't know, right? Because that was college. This is the NFL. It's not going as well right now. That's not all Bryce Young's fault, but CJ Stroud is obviously working out very well for Houston. But that's the whole thing. They're lottery tickets. And sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. CJ Stroud, even him, he's played half a season. Yeah. Lamar Jackson is a guy who has been in the NFL for 5 years, who's won a ton of games in the NFL, who's won MVP in the NFL, and there's no question marks with him. But every one of these teams said, hey, money more important than winning.
Right.
There you go.
Doesn't winning bring about money?
Yeah.
That it does. That it does. Yeah. But not everybody cares about winning. We know that that's the case with players, and that's also the case with owners. All right, that wraps this up. By the time we cut this down, it's probably going to be like a 10-minute video or so, but it feels like it took forever. It feels like it took all night.
Only 4 quarters. Only 4 quarters.
Only 4 quarters. We weren't sure how this game is going to turn out when we started. Now we know.
It is currently 34-13.
Hendo, thank you for joining us, my friend. Tell the people where they can find you.
Thank you for having me. You can find me on the Rogue Pod on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. You can also find me on the Rogue Pod in audio form wherever you get your audio podcasts.
All right, there you go. And of course, our information is right below Hendo. Everywhere on social media at LBHTShow is where you can find us. Also, if you like what we're doing, you can hit up our Patreon at patreon.com/LBHTShow. All right. Everything that you donate to the show goes right back into the show. So it'd be much appreciated. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button on your way out. But that is it for this video. And we will see you in the next one. Peace.